I'd like to welcome all of you to Saturday's story. I think we'll all agree that we have never lived in times like this, unprecedented times, times when really nobody knew exactly what to do. But you see, the Lord will always have a word for His people. There's always going to be a word. God will send a word to His people. Jesus, the Bible said in Matthew 24 and verse 3, that as Jesus sat upon the Mount of Olives, His disciples came to Him privately saying, Lord, tell us when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of Thy coming and the end of the world? And the first thing Jesus said, He said, you see to it that you be not deceived. Because the Lord was trying to tell us that deception is going to come in this last day. Deception can come, my friend, and maybe even come through a pandemic, a time to when the enemy has a plot and a plan to sort of knock us into neutral and try to bring us back to Laodicean limbo and stop us from our purpose. And therefore, we'll never reach that power and never release the true potential that God has for us. We have never lived in a time like this, and God is going to use a prophetic word to grip the hearts of God's people in this hour. I refuse to allow the spirit of deception to blind my mind and my heart to what God is trying to do. America cannot be deceived in this hour of just being appeased and to fall into the negotiating trap of the enemy. And this, my friend, will bring me to Saturday's story. It was 1930 when a sitting member of the English Parliament wrote a book. He wrote a book on a prophetic forecast that he saw. He saw something, and he wrote this book, and he entitled it, The Gathering Storm. Because he saw in this gathering storm such a magnitude of a storm that was going to rock Europe and was going to affect the Western civilization as we know it. It would be a storm in a war. And because of this book and because of what he saw, this man was running for Prime Minister of England. I think you'll all recognize his name. It was Winston Churchill. He was the man that wrote the book on the prophetic forecast of what he saw and the gathering storm that he said was coming. But the people, when they read the book and they heard the forecast, they turned on him. They rejected Winston Churchill, and they voted in a man by the name of Neville Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain, his approach was totally different from Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was a man who spoke truth, a man who could see and identify an enemy for what it was. But Neville Chamberlain, he sought after appeasement and negotiations, and he signed a treaty. He signed a treaty in the 1930s with Adolf Hitler. And this would prove to be the greatest mistake that England could ever make. But because of this treaty, terrible, terrible destruction and confrontation came. We all know who Adolf Hitler was, and what his plan was absolutely to take over the known world. But you see, this spirit of appeasement and negotiation has never worked. It didn't work then, and it won't work now. You cannot negotiate with the devil. We cannot negotiate and appease an enemy that is out to destroy, absolutely take away the faith of God's people, and to undermine everything that we have fought for and stood for. You cannot negotiate with a spirit that's trying to take us so far to the left that you won't even recognize America and our world when they get through. I pray, God, help us. Help us. Help us, because you see, this coming storm is coming. This storm is on our horizon, and we are the only ones who can stand up and identify this. Because you see, it was because of this book that the people, when they turned on Winston Churchill, and now Hitler's armies are now marching, they're marching through Europe and they're going to attack England. It was then that they saw the light. It was then that they voted Neville Chamberlain out, because negotiation and appeasement doesn't work. Sort of like the story of the man. He was up in the high altitudes of the mountains. He was hiking, and hiking along, he came upon a snake. A snake curled up. And the snake said, "Please take me down. It's cold up here. Please take me down." He said, "Oh no, I can't take you down because you're a snake." He said, I promise I won't bite you. I promise if you'll just help me get down to where it's warmer, I promise I won't do anything to harm you." So the man, trying to appease, picked up the snake. When he made it down to where the climate was warmer, the snake bit him. He threw him down. He said, you bit me. You said you wasn't going to bite me." And the snake said, "You knew I was a snake when you picked me up." Let me tell you, when you know it's a snake, then you cannot negotiate and appease with a devil, with a snake. You've got to identify it for what it is. It's no wonder that John the Revelator, when he wrote to the 7 churches of Asia, and these churches identify every one of you that I would speak to today, no matter what flavor, what faith you are of, he wrote to the 7 churches, to the angels or the pastors of each one of the 7 churches of Asia. And each one of these pastors wrote in your Bible in chapters 2 and 3, 7 times, but they wrote these words, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit has to say." Because I really do believe the Spirit of God has got something to say to God's people. He's got something to say to America. He's got something to say to all of us. You can't negotiate. You can't appease. You've got to stand for truth. You've got to stand for what is right. And he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit has to say. And it was as they voted Neville Chamberlain out and voted Winston Churchill in, because they knew that what he saw was truth. It was he who wrote, "Let's take a stand. Let's stand and fight them on the beaches. Fight them in the streets. Fight them wherever they are. But let's take a stand and defend what we know is right." My message to you in Saturday's story: he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit has to say, because there's a gathering storm. You can try to appease, you can try to negotiate it, but it's coming, and it's us, you and I, who have to take a stand in this evil day. And having done all to stand, stand therefore and gird yourselves with truth. God bless you today. Please share the story with someone, because we've got to prepare for the coming storm. Thank you.